Hi, this is Natu, a guy who's way too old and way too long involved in this game, and you're watching Thorin's YouTube channel.
News has come today that legendary Brazilian Counter-Strike player FNX has been released from NTC, now Temcomor, and quite frankly, it seems as if that team was his last chance to make any kind of an impact again at big international tournaments at the top level of Counter-Strike. And the sad thing is, this is an individual who clearly has talent and skill at the game. I mean, he's someone where if you know his history, he has natural talent. This is a guy who was already at a very good level, a world-class level, at ages 15, 16. That was the ages he's competing at, winning the major with MIBR back in 2006 at ESWC. In 1.6, he's someone who, sure, he had streaky aim, but he had good aim and he had very solid fragging ability. He had a very dynamic, aggressive playing style, was a star player for the MIBR squad, kind of the sidekick to Kogu, an aggressive rifler. In CSGO, he transformed his game. He became a reliable veteran player, someone with, again, solid fragging, not quite on the same star level though, plays his spots well, quite intelligently, clutch player. I mean, most famously, the tournament where this team really broke out was when he joined. They had 2 days. They went to Face It Stage 3, which was DreamHack Winter 2015. And what people forget about their epic run through that tournament where they beat NIP in a best of 3. And they beat, who else was it they beat in a best of 3? Oh, TSM, obviously. Now, that was the match that people forget about. Oh, they beat Envious as well. The one that everyone forgets about is the TSM one, which was the Danish guys, now in Astralis, in the semi-finals. Because the other match is fair play. The Brazilians outplayed them, had some amazing games, really beat up on some of the best teams. But the TSM game was where TSM, in the third map, really looked like they were going to win. They were supposed to on paper. And that's the series where FNX went fucking ham, dropped mad numbers, was winning clutches all over the place, like no one had any business winning. And that really launched this squad as a team. They then became known as an elite team. Obviously, months later, 3 or 4 months later, went on to win the major, won 2 majors. Even after all of that, everyone remembers how clutch he was, how good he was. Famously, part of their training strength on CT side was him playing near that electric box, that ladder area, which later on Fer had to swap and play in a very different fashion. Obviously, Fer used to play inside instead. The thing is, Brazil doesn't have players in the mould of FNX with his exact kind of skill set who've played at his level, because that's the thing as well. Even if they had a player with the skill level, you wouldn't have the experience level FNX has. Years of competing, years against playing the best players of every era of Counter-Strike and being able to bring a good performance against them. This is a guy who was one of the talismanic players along with Kogu, who accomplished practically everything that the CS scene managed to in Brazilian Counter-Strike. In fact, even when Kogu was out of the scene for a while, FNX was still there. He's someone who, as a result, could be very valuable for Brazilian Counter-Strike and CSGO and part of the best teams they have. But what is it that has cost him his chance to? It's nothing to do with what happened in the game. It's all to do with his attitude. He's someone where the rep doesn't work quite as hard as other people. Has his periods at the beginning when he joins a team, he's motivated, he's playing a lot. But then as things go on, he lets his foot off the pedal a little bit. He doesn't try as hard. If he makes mistakes, he doesn't work as hard to correct them. Apparently in line with that, difficult to deal with. This has been a hallmark of his career. When he gets in his mind that he doesn't like the way a certain person does something or he has a personality conflict, much like Shocks in the French scene, he finds his way getting kicked out of teams, getting removed from teams, having to leave teams. They don't get resolved, these problems. He's not an easy to work with teammate, despite the fact in-game, his team play always looked very good. He looked like a very good teammate to play with. There's then the fact that because he's been so popular, especially in CSGO, he's got a whole bunch of people around him who are going to tell him, nah, you're doing things right, man. You're the man. Like, where's the accountability? I mean, shouldn't the Brazilian scene be looking at this guy and going, you're so talented, you're so good, we need players like you. A team like MIBR needs a player like you now. Just get your shit together, man. Grind your way back up to the top again. You can do it. We believe in you. Nah, everyone still celebrates this guy, even when he's just being inactive, even when he's wasting everyone's time, he's collecting a salary, doing nothing, even when his teams fail. He never seems to be the guy who catches the flack, right? So you know what? No feedback loop. He never gets the message himself, because clearly he himself doesn't reflect on this and go, what am I doing with my career? He just keeps chugging along. He has his brand. He has his Instagram. He seems to think life's just fine and dandy, quite frankly. So here's the thing. Beyond his attitude, which is the main reason why he's not in a team like SK, MIBR anymore, there's factors that make it very likely this is the end for FNX, sadly, and it really didn't have to be. I mean, first of all, just looking at his age, in terms of his objective age, the guy's 28 years old. I mean, even just as a normal person, that's at the back end of your CSGO career. Not many people beyond 28 are as good as him or have a chance to be as good as him. They tend to be fading out at that point anyway. Then in CS terms, the guy's ancient. I mean, as I said, he's been playing like 12, 13 years or something. Many of those at an international level, competing around the world. He's got a lot of miles on the clock. So if he is jaded, if he doesn't want to play, what are the odds he's going to turn all that around now? This is a guy who's been playing for like 14 years or something ridiculous. And as a result, because he's so old and so experienced, and it feels like the guy's set in his ways as well. No one's expecting this guy to make some transformation overnight, see the light, road to Damascus, come back, be an awesome teammate, grind super hard every day, do everything people say, take feedback. People just kind of know FNX is FNX, and we got the best out of him in the teams that when we had him before. Now we're getting the bad part of him. Let's remove him. Let's move on. Let that be someone else's issue. So you look at the chances this guy has had, and to a degree blown. So he's been in Fallen's teams twice. And let's get into some seriously desperate scenario. Why is Fallen going to recruit him? In fact, if anything, as we've seen, Fallen will even recruit people from outside of Brazil rather than someone like this. He was in the Kaboom team at the end of 2014. He was in Luminosity and SK Gaming end of 2015 going into 2016. They kicked him from the team, even though the team was still one of the absolute best in the world. All those tournaments after they won the major, where they didn't win the tournaments anymore, they were always making semis, they were making numerous finals, they were playing the best teams in the world, the best ranked teams, very, very close. They still had that insane train streak right up until the end. That was actually his last game for SK, where they got rocked by Astralis on train finally. There was nothing in the server to say this guy had to go. But part of what kept them from winning, at least in the perception of some of these players, was this guy had an attitude problem, or was he as dedicated as the rest of us? The problem is, since he left that squad, he has shown no massive attitude change or like turning my life around to prove that he should be back in the squad like that. They've won without him in SK. They started that very successful 2017. Meanwhile, in Immortals, he didn't win shit. He won nothing meaningful. So he didn't prove it in the game either. Then he went to Immortals. This was a chance. If it was the SK guys who were part, personality conflict, or we just don't get along anymore, he could have gone to Immortals, shown the veteran leadership, been a star player in that team, shown how valuable he is, and he could have had his chance to go back to SK, right? No, he couldn't even last in Immortals. The guy lasted 6 months or so. He only went to like 3 notable lands. It was like IM Katowice, where they did a really good job. They finished top 4. There was Star Series Season 3, where they didn't even make the playoffs. And then there was, in fact, they were one of the teams who lost to Hellraisers. And then there was DreamHack Austin, not a massive event, sort of a tier 2 type tournament. They finished second there. Okay, solid enough performance behind Gambit. Nothing out of the world though. If they were going to be as good as he'd hoped with FNX, 3 lands in, he should be winning that land, right? Didn't happen. Then he got benched. Attitude issues. The team went on without him. What did they do without him? They made the final of a major. They were looking like one of the most dangerous, like a top 6-7 squad. By the time he got to the DreamHack Malmos of the world, etc. Obviously, they had their own issues elsewhere with attitudes, with other players who were difficult to deal with and waste their talent. KNG, obviously. But he was just sat on the bench the whole time, FNX, watching that. Now, because of those issues, he got resurrected from the dead. Back he came, because then 100 Thieves happened when Noah Winston, out of the kindness of his heart, let the major spot, and these players go. Obviously, he sold their contracts. I'm joking there, but facetious by saying out the kindness of his heart. But as a result of them not going with Steel and Bolts and those guys who went elsewhere, there was a spot, and back came FNX, and it was going to be the Villa Mixers, the party team, the bad boys of Brazilian Counter-Strike. All sounded great, right? That storyline sounded fucking sick. I was on board. I wanted to see, look at the talent in this team. Hey, at a one-off tournament, hey, maybe they could do it for the major. Maybe they could make a sick run. No one knows what they're doing. They're practicing like a black box scenario. No one knows how good they are. You're hearing things like, they're really motivated to do it. Didn't even get to the major. Had all the problems happen with the visas. Then afterwards, KNG implodes. They get kicked from the organisation. There's another massive black mark. You've been in SK, you've been in Immortals, you've been in 100 Thieves. All in the span of what? Like 2 years? This is too short. So then you go to the NTC scenario. And the worst kept secret in Counter-Strike is that MIBR, the squad that was SK, is going to the Immortals to become MIBR, and the other side of that is that the NTC squad is going to join SK to replace them and still have a Brazilian squad. But you know what? That was conditional upon not failing all the lands you go to. And you know what? They failed all the lands they went to, so they didn't get the SK squad. They failed ESL Belo Horizonte in their home country, in front of a home crowd. They failed Zotac Europe, a tournament that didn't even have top teams in it. They failed the Americas Minor, another tournament where, aside from an IG, these teams are all supposed to be beatable. You have more talent, you have bigger names, you have better funding in theory. I mean, maybe not at this point in time in NTC. You're supposed to smoke these guys and go to a fucking major. And if anything, laugh at the fact that Valve makes it so just getting out of a minor means you get to majors now and be like, haha, I'm back in majors. Despite all your talent, despite everything I just said, failed all those tournaments, so didn't end up in SK. Another chance blown. So where could someone like FNX go now that he's been cut from this team? Well, Luminosity, I don't know why they would make the change for him right now. You've already seen some of the issues you've had before. They've got a decent enough squad now. You'd probably end up having to cut one of the younger players. Don't really see why that logically would work. Kenny and Lucas left his squad already, so why would they want to play with him again? MIBR, are you having a fucking laugh? If anything, MIBR's going elsewhere. They're like letting Cold Zero go if they fuck up lands, or they're getting another international player into the team as they tried with Simpo or Nico. It's very unlikely MIBR's picking this guy up again. What about another international team? Who knows how good this guy's English is? He's not someone who's managed to put much of a career out there trying to speak English to everyone, trying to make himself a personable person. He doesn't really have options for that, and he's got this bad rep following him. So the sad thing about this is, after SK, that didn't have to be the end of the story. That didn't have to be the downward trajectory. It could have been a totally new chapter. He should have turned Immortals into the team that they eventually became without him, the one that made deep runs in big international tournaments and looked really dangerous like they did at that major. They accomplished that without him, in spite of him having been on the roster, because he didn't play the fucking games. So he gets no credit for any of that. He should have taken 100 Thieves with all that talent, with such a weird situation, took him in the major, had a great performance there. Didn't happen. And yet that would have been the perfect timing, because remember, after that major is when SK started to fall off like a motherfucker. Then he would have been in a scenario where his team's outperforming SK. You saw what happened when the G2 Envious situation was going on in 2016, where the cast-offs were beating the original team that kicked them, and eventually the original team had to come crawling and try and join them. He could have been in that scenario. That's another way he could have gotten back in, by forcing his way back in, like the French scene, where when one team's in dire jeopardy and they remember you were really good when you played them in the past and you're really good now and you're showcasing you don't need them, that's when they realise they need you and you get the move, like Shocks and Kenny S playing together with Existence again, like NBK hinting he would play with Existence again. You could have done that in this team. And then finally you got NTC, a squad with, when you've got that much talent, even just having a player like Phelps, you should be able to accomplish something half decent. You could be in SK right now. You could be going to international tournaments right now. Instead, all of that's failed as well. So quite frankly, it looks as though FNX is just going to fade into obscurity at this point. His chapter is done of this book, of his esports career, especially the CSGO chapter, and it didn't have to be this way. And that's what's so frustrating and so saddening about this situation. This video was kindly supported by Dean Tanglis, Gardner Wilson, Andreas, Snazore, Westerlund, Alex Adams, Eddie Wingfors, Daniel Yordanov, Robert Baxter, Travis Greb, Kyla Harris, James Harding, Saar, and a special thanks go out to Matt Shakowski and Jerky's Minion. Now, do you want teasers for my upcoming content? Do you want to ask me a question for my monthly AMA? Do you want to take part in an esports discussion with me and other patrons? Perhaps you'd like to suggest a topic or a guest. Well, put your money where your mouth is and join the Scrilluminati today at the Patreon link below.